The mighty Galactic Empire's warships darkened Earth's skies one quiet Tuesday morning. For over 300 years, Emperor Taiho had led his forces across the stars, bringing planet after planet under imperial rule. Some worlds fought back, some surrendered immediately, all eventually fell. Earth was supposed to be no different. When imperial sensors first detected the blue planet, analysts dismissed it as just another primitive world, still burning fossil fuels and fighting among themselves. Admiral Jimin, decorated veteran of 16 successful planetary conquests, requested the assignment personally. He wanted something easy after the difficult Proxima campaign. Another backward world to add to His Majesty's collection, Jimin told his officers as they gathered on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Dominance. Our scans show they've barely reached their own moon. Their weapons are chemical-based projectiles and crude nuclear devices. The Admiral's lips curled into a smile as he studied the holographic display of Earth. This conquest will be completed within a standard week. Prepare the scouting parties. The first Imperial scouts landed in empty areas, deserts, mountain ranges and remote islands. They established forward bases with reality-bending technology that allowed them to remain hidden from human detection systems. Or so they thought. Within hours of their arrival, Scout Team 7 went silent. Then Team 3. By nightfall, 5 teams had stopped reporting. "Impossible," muttered Jimin when the reports reached him. "Send recovery teams. Find out what happened." The recovery teams found empty outposts. Imperial equipment was missing. Bodies were nowhere to be found. Captain Do-hyun, head of intelligence, brought the Admiral disturbing footage recovered from a scout's helmet camera. The video showed Imperial soldiers being ambushed by humans using simple tactics but surprising effectiveness. The humans moved like they knew exactly where to strike. "Admiral, these humans are not behaving like a species encountering advanced aliens for the first time," Do-hyun pointed out. "They're organized. They're targeting our communication systems first, then weapons, then taking our technology. I suggest we reconsider our approach." Jimin waved away the concern. 5 teams out of 50 is nothing. These are lucky strikes. Probably their special forces stumbled upon our scouts. Once we begin the main invasion, their primitive militaries will crumble. Do-hyun wasn't convinced. "Sir, my analysis suggests they were prepared for us. Specifically for us. Look at how they target our shield generators. They shouldn't even understand what those devices are." "Enough, Captain. I won't delay the Emperor's annexation because some humans got lucky. Prepare the dropships. We begin tomorrow." "What, Admiral?" Jimin didn't know, what Imperial intelligence had completely missed, was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for generations. 60 years earlier, a damaged alien scout ship had crashed in a remote region. The world's governments, working together in rare cooperation, had recovered the vessel and reverse-engineered what technology they could. More importantly, they found the ship's records, including detailed information about the Empire and its conquest patterns. Earth had spent decades building defenses, training soldiers, and developing countermeasures specifically designed to combat Imperial tactics. Everything was hidden underground or behind technology that made it appear primitive to Imperial scanners. General Hyon of the United Earth Defense Force watched from an underground command center as the Imperial dropships prepared to descend. "They're following the exact attack pattern from the archives," she told her officers. "Just as predicted, they'll target government centers first, then military bases, then communications networks." She turned to her communications officer. "Send the signal. All units activate according to planned Thermopylae." Across the planet, hidden defense systems powered up. Soldiers emerged from concealed bunkers, weapons designed specifically to penetrate. Imperial shields were deployed. As the first wave of Imperial troops descended through Earth's atmosphere, they expected terrified humans running in panic. Instead, they flew directly into precisely targeted defensive fire. Dropships exploded mid-air. Those that made it to the ground found no easy targets, only carefully planned ambushes. On the Eternal Dominance, Admiral Jimin watched in growing horror as casualty reports flooded in. 80% of the first wave was already lost. How could this be happening? Captain Do-yun entered the bridge, his face grim. "Admiral, we've intercepted their communications. They know who we are. They know our tactics. They've been preparing for this for decades. Impossible!" Jimin slammed his fist on the command console. "They're primitives." "No, sir," Do-yun said quietly. "They were primitives who found one of our scout ships that went missing 60 years ago. They've been studying us while we ignored them." Jimin's face drained of color as he realized his terrible mistake. The Empire had always succeeded because they studied their targets carefully while remaining unknown themselves. This time the situation was reversed. "Recall the remaining dropships," he ordered. "Prepare the orbital bombardment. We'll destroy their major cities from orbit and force their surrender." But as he gave the order, the ship's sensors screamed. Warnings. Somehow missiles were rising from Earth's surface, missiles that shouldn't exist, carrying warheads specifically designed to target Imperial shield frequencies. The first battle against humanity had begun in earnest, and the Empire should have run while they still could. Commander Junho stood on the bridge of the Imperial vessel, undying glory, watching as Earth grew larger on the main display. His mandibles clicked with anticipated triumph. 5 full battle. Fleets surrounded the blue planet, their weapons primed and ready. "Send the surrender demand," he ordered. "Standard Imperial protocol. They have 1 planetary cycle to disband their governments and accept our rule." Behind him, Strategic Officer. Minho bowed slightly. "The humans will certainly surrender, Commander. Our intelligence indicates they have never faced a unified extraterrestrial threat. The psychological impact alone should crush their will to fight." Junho nodded, satisfied. In his centuries of service to Emperor Taiho, he had overseen dozens of planetary conquests. All followed the same pattern: initial resistance, shock when faced with Imperial technology, then rapid capitulation. Earth would be no different, but the surrender never came. Instead, as the deadline approached, human communication channels remained silent. Sensors detected unusual movement across Earth's surface, not the panicked evacuations Imperial tacticians expected, but coordinated military deployments. "They're preparing to fight," Junho said in disbelief. "These primitives actually think they can resist." "Perhaps a demonstration is in order," suggested Lieutenant Gihun. "A single strike against an uninhabited area." Junho considered this. "No, full assault. Deploy the first wave immediately. Target their military bases and government centers." As Imperial dropships descended through Earth's atmosphere, they encountered something unexpected: precise defensive. Fire from weapons that shouldn't exist according to their intelligence. Several ships exploded mid-descent, their debris raining down on the oceans below. "Impossible," Minho shouted, staring at the casualty reports. "Their technology is at least 2 centuries behind ours. They shouldn't be able to target our ships at all, let alone penetrate our shields." In the command center of Earth's United Defense Force, General Nari studied the holographic display showing Imperial formations. Beside her, Colonel Daehyun pointed to the dropship formations. "They're following textbook Imperial invasion patterns," he said, "just as the recovered files predicted." Nari nodded. "Activate the network. Let's show these invaders what humans can really do." Across the planet, hidden defense systems deployed. What had appeared to be primitive radar installations suddenly revealed their true nature: advanced targeting systems designed specifically to detect and track Imperial shield frequencies. In orbit, Commander Junho received alarming reports from the ground teams that managed to land. "Commander, the humans, they know our tactics. They were waiting for us." "Nonsense," Junho snapped. "How could they possibly—" His words were cut short as the bridge tactical officer shouted, "Commander, they've breached our communication encryption. They're inside our network." On Earth, thousands of human hackers worked in coordinated shifts, using techniques that defied Imperial security logic. While Imperial systems relied on unbreakable quantum encryption, humans attacked the systems themselves, exploiting hardware vulnerabilities and using methods so unorthodox that Imperial security protocols never considered them threats. Strategic. Officer Minho watched in horror as system after system fell. "Commander, this is unprecedented. They're using techniques that make no logical sense. They're not trying to break our encryption. They're bypassing it completely. How? Junho demanded. Minho hesitated. They appear to be thinking in ways our security experts never anticipated. They're using brute force methods combined with unexpected access points. It shouldn't work, but it is. On the battlefield, Imperial soldiers encountered equally baffling resistance. Humans fought with weapons that seemed primitive at first glance, kinetic projectile rifles and simple explosives, but they had been modified using reverse-engineered Imperial technology. Captain Jinyok led his platoon through the ruins of what had been a small human settlement. "These creatures are insane," he reported over the command channel. "They're adapting our own weapons against us. I've seen them strip down our rifles and repurpose the components within hours." Across the globe, Imperial forces found themselves outmaneuvered by human fighters who seemed to anticipate their every move. Ambushes waited around every corner. Supply lines were cut with surgical precision. Communication relays were hacked or destroyed. Back on the Undying Glory, Commander Junho slammed his fist against the tactical display. "This was supposed to be an easy conquest," he shouted. "How are they adapting so quickly?" Lieutenant Gi-hun studied the intelligence reports. "Commander, we've intercepted some of their communications. It appears they've been studying us for decades. Somehow they obtained information about Imperial tactics and technology long before our arrival." "That's not possible," Junho insisted. "No Imperial ship has ever approached this system before our fleet." "Nevertheless," Strategic Officer Minho said quietly, "they were prepared for us." As the third day of the invasion began, the casualty reports reached alarming levels. Over 40% of the landing force had been lost, with minimal territorial gains to show for it. In his war room deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, the president of the United Earth Alliance met with his generals. "We've bloodied their nose," General Nari reported. "But their main fleet remains in orbit. They'll adapt to our tactics soon." The president nodded grimly. "Then we move to Phase 2. Launch the orbital platforms." Commander Junho was reviewing battle plans when alarms blared across the bridge. "Multiple launches detected from Earth's surface," the sensor officer shouted. "Primitive missiles," Junho dismissed. "Our shields will—" His words died as he watched the first Imperial destroyer explode in a blinding flash. Then another. And another? "What's happening?" he demanded. Lieutenant Ji-hoon's voice shook as he replied, "Commander, they've copied our shield frequency modulators. Their missiles bypass our defenses completely." For the first time in his long career, Commander Hunyo felt real fear. This wasn't a conquest. It was becoming a slaughter. His forces were being decimated by creatures who, by all logic, should be cowering in terror. "Full orbital bombardment," he ordered, his voice cold with rage. "Target their major population. Centers? We will crush their resistance with overwhelming force." The Imperial fleet repositioned, preparing to rain destruction upon Earth's cities. But as they moved into position, new alarms sounded. "Energy readings from the moon." "The sensor," officer called out. "They've hidden installations there." Before Junho could respond, brilliant beams of energy lanced out from the lunar surface, cutting through the shields of 3 Imperial battle cruisers as if they were made of paper. Strategic Officer Minho stared at the display in disbelief. "Commander, these humans, they're not just adapting our technology, they're improving it." In the Lunar Command Center, Colonel Dae-hyun watched with satisfaction as the Imperial fleet scattered in disarray. "They never thought to check the moon," he said with a grim smile. "Typical Imperial arrogance." Aboard the Undying Glory, Commander Junho faced the unthinkable: retreat. In all his centuries of service, he had never failed to conquer a world. "Prepare a full withdrawal," he ordered, his voice hollow. "We must report this to the Emperor." As the remnants of the once mighty Imperial fleet limped away from Earth, Junho stared at the blue planet on the view screen. These humans were unlike any species the Empire had encountered. They didn't just fight. They learned, adapted, and evolved their tactics with frightening speed. "Send a priority message to all Imperial vessels," he said quietly. "Earth is to be classified as a Class 10 threat world. Under no circumstances is any Imperial ship to approach this system without a full battle fleet." The Galactic Empire had encountered many species in its long history of conquest, but humans were different, and for the first time, the Empire knew fear. The tide turned on a rainy Tuesday morning. For 3 weeks, the Imperial fleet had hammered Earth with everything they had. Cities burned. Millions had fled underground. But humanity wasn't broken, far from it. In the darkened war room beneath what remained of Geneva, General Lee studied. The holographic display of enemy positions, her face illuminated by its blue glow. The room smelled of coffee and determination. Around her stood Earth's last, best hope, commanders from every nation, united against the invasion. "It's time," she said simply. The others nodded. 3 weeks of taking punches had been necessary, painful, but necessary. Every Imperial attack had been studied, recorded, analyzed. Every weapon they deployed had been collected and taken apart by the world's brightest minds. The invaders thought humans were merely defending. They were wrong. High above Earth, Captain Hyunwoo strutted across the bridge of the Imperial dreadnought Inevitable Victory. The massive warship had destroyed 3 major cities already. Humans fought back with their primitive weapons, of course, but nothing that worried him. "Prepare the next bombardment," he ordered. "Target their production facilities in what they call Asia." His second-in-command bowed slightly. "Yes, Captain. The humans continue to resist, but they cannot—" Alarms blared suddenly, cutting him off. Multiple launches detected from Earth's surface, shouted the sensor officer, his eyes wide. Hyunwoo laughed. "Their primitive missiles, our shields will—" He never finished his sentence. The first missile struck the Inevitable Victory with devastating precision, somehow bypassing shields, calibrated to stop energy weapons 1,000 years more advanced. The explosion tore through the ship's port side, venting entire decks to space. "Impossible!" Hyunwoo screamed as his bridge tilted at a sickening angle. "Their technology is centuries behind ours." 2 more missiles hit before he could give another order. The mighty dreadnought, pride of the Imperial fleet, broke apart like a child's toy. Captain Hyunwoo, who had overseen the destruction of 3 human cities, died without understanding how he'd been defeated. He never realized the missiles that killed him were technically primitive, simple nuclear devices packed into housings, made from his own ship's debris, their guidance systems redesigned to exploit the exact frequency gaps in Imperial shields. The humans had spent 3 weeks studying those shields, finding the weaknesses the Empire never thought to fix. Across Earth orbit, 5 more Imperial capital ships died in the same way. On the ground, the counter-offensive moved just as swiftly. Major Jiho led his Imperial troopers through the ruins of London, expecting only minimal resistance. The humans had been driven underground days ago. "Sector clear," he reported. "Moving to—" The street erupted beneath his feet. Not from explosives, but because the entire road surface slid aside, revealing an elaborate tunnel system. Before his soldiers could react, humans poured out from every direction, not the ragged civilians they expected, but organized fighters. Wearing patchwork armor scavenged from fallen Imperial soldiers. Most shocking of all, they carried Imperial weapons. "Fall back!" Jiho shouted, firing wildly. "How do they have our—" A blast caught him mid-sentence, fired from a weapon that had been Imperial issue just days earlier. The humans had somehow modified it to bypass standard Imperial armor. Similar scenes played out in occupied territories worldwide. Imperial forces that had grown complacent suddenly found themselves outgunned by the very people they'd thought defeated. Human fighters didn't just use captured weapons, they'd improved them, modified them in ways the original designers never imagined. In the Imperial command carrier orbiting the moon, Science Director Seo-jun received the frantic reports with growing horror. "This cannot be happening," he muttered, reviewing the data. "It takes centuries to reverse engineer our technology. Our systems are encoded with fail-safes, designed to self-destruct when tampered with." His assistant displayed footage, captured from the ground battles. "Director, observe. They're not trying to understand how our technology works. They're simply adapting it for their immediate needs." The screen showed human engineers taking apart Imperial plasma rifles, reconfiguring components with crude tools, testing the modified weapons against Imperial armor samples. Failed attempts were cast aside immediately. Successful modifications copied and distributed with ruthless efficiency. It's not methodical research, Seojun realized. It's trial and error. Brute force. Adaptation. He looked up, eyes wide. They're treating our advanced technology like simple mechanical devices. His assistant nodded grimly. And it's working. Most alarming was the speed. Imperial engineering doctrine required years of theoretical study before attempting any modifications to existing designs. These humans simply took things apart and reassembled them, failing repeatedly until they succeeded. By the battle's fourth week, Imperial supply lines were under constant attack. Humans used captured Imperial ships, piloted by hastily trained crews. They didn't understand the theoretical principles behind the engines, but they'd learned which controls did what. When an Imperial supply convoy near Jupiter was ambushed by ships flying erratic, unpredictable patterns, the commander reported in disbelief. They fly like madmen, ignoring safety protocols and standard flight paths. Our targeting systems cannot predict their movements. On Earth, General Lee watched the holographic display as more red Imperial icons vanished. The room had erupted in cheers with the first victories, but now worked with quiet, determined focus. They thought we'd surrender, she said to her aide. They thought their technology made them gods, her aide nodded. Their mistake. No, Lee corrected, watching another Imperial capital ship blink out of existence. Their mistake was giving us 3 weeks to learn. The Imperial retreat began the next day. Not an organized withdrawal, but a panicked flight. Ships designed to move in perfect formation scattered in all directions, their commanders caring only about escaping the unexpected nightmare Earth had become. Science Director Seojun, one of the last to leave the solar system, transmitted his final report to the distant Empire. Humans adapt faster than any species we have encountered. They do not innovate like we do, through careful study and gradual improvement. They harvest, they modify, they evolve, sometimes incorrectly, but always quickly. Most concerning of all, they learn from failure rather than fearing it. I recommend no further contact with Earth until we can develop countermeasures to their particular form of technological adaptation. They are not more advanced than us. They are more dangerous. His ship jumped to light speed, leaving behind a world already busy disassembling and studying the technology, abandoned in the Empire's hasty retreat. The gleaming halls of the Imperial Palace fell silent as Emperor Taiho threw the battle report against the wall. Around him, high-ranking ministers and generals stared at the floor, no one daring to speak. 3 fleets lost, thousands of soldiers dead, dozens of ships destroyed or captured. Impossible, the Emperor finally said, his voice dangerously quiet. You tell me that primitives who have barely reached their own moon have driven back the might of our empire. Admiral Jimin, his once pristine uniform now bearing the marks of desperate escape, bowed low. Great Emperor, these humans, they do not fight like any species we have encountered before. They are savages with primitive technology. They were, Admiral Jimin corrected carefully, but they learn with frightening speed. The Emperor paced the length of the Golden Hall, his ceremonial robes swirling around him. The chamber was designed to intimidate, vast ceilings supported by columns carved from the bones of conquered worlds, banners representing 1,000 subjugated species hanging from the walls. I want answers, Emperor Taiho demanded, not excuses. The ministers exchanged nervous glances. Finally, a small figure stepped forward from the shadows at the far end of the hall. Perhaps I might offer some insight, Your Majesty. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. Grand Strategist Sunwoo, I did not summon you. No, Your Majesty, but I believe my services are required nonetheless. Sunwoo was not physically impressive, small in stature, with a scholarly appearance that belied his importance. For 3 centuries he had analyzed the Empire's enemies, finding their weaknesses, predicting their actions. No species had ever escaped his strategic brilliance. You believe you can explain this? Embarrassment, the Emperor asked. I believe. I must see for myself, Sunwoo replied simply. Send me to observe these humans. I will determine whether they pose a genuine threat or merely caught us unprepared. 2 days later, Grand Strategist Sunwoo's personal vessel entered the Sol system, cloaked with technology far beyond what had been deployed in the initial invasion. Even so, he maintained a careful distance, unwilling to underestimate these strange creatures a second time. For 10 days, Sun Wu watched and recorded. His ship's sensors captured everything: battles between remaining Imperial forces and human fighters, communications between Earth's military leaders, the rapid adaptation of Imperial technology in human hands. Most importantly, he studied their behavior patterns, their decision-making, their values. When he returned to the Imperial capital, his conclusions shocked the Emperor's court. "Humans are unique," Sun Wu explained, displaying footage on the grand holographic table, "not because they are stronger or more intelligent than other species we have conquered, but because they possess a cognitive framework utterly different from our own." The assembled ministers watched footage of human engineers dismantling Imperial technology, failing repeatedly, then suddenly succeeding. "They embrace failure," Sun Wu continued. "Where our engineers might spend decades perfecting a design before building it, humans build, test, fail, modify, and test again, sometimes hundreds of times in rapid succession." Admiral Jimin nodded grimly. "We noticed this behavior. They seem to learn from each defeat." "Precisely. And their rate of adaptation is exponential, not linear." Sun Wu changed the display to show a graph with a steeply climbing line. "This charts their technological progress since the invasion began. They have advanced centuries in mere weeks." The Emperor studied the projection with growing concern. "You suggest these savages might eventually match our technology. Your Majesty, if this trend continues, they will not merely match our technology. They will surpass it within 2 standard years." Shocked murmurs filled the chamber. Sun Wu continued relentlessly. "There is another factor we failed to consider. Humans are not a unified species. They have thousands of distinct cultures, languages, and approaches to problem-solving. When faced with a challenge, they attack it from countless different angles simultaneously." The next footage showed human military units from different nations, each using modified Imperial technology in unique ways. These differences, which we assumed would make them weak and divided, actually create a form of cognitive diversity that accelerates their adaptation. They compete with each other even as they cooperate against us. The Emperor sat heavily on his throne, the implications becoming clear. "Your recommendation, Grand Strategist?" "Immediate and complete withdrawal from the Sol system. Establish a quarantine zone of at least 20 light-years. No further contact until we have thoroughly studied their psychology and developed countermeasures." Minister Yong, responsible for Imperial expansion, stepped forward in protest. "This is absurd. We cannot allow primitive creatures to defy the Empire. It would encourage rebellion in other systems." "The alternative," Sun Wu replied coldly, "is to watch them grow stronger with each engagement. Every ship we lose, every technology they capture, accelerates their advancement." For a long moment, Emperor Taiho considered the options in silence. The Imperial court waited anxiously for his decision. "No," he finally declared, "I will not retreat from savages. The Empire has never abandoned a conquest, and we will not start now." Sun Wu bowed his head. "Then, Your Majesty, I recommend overwhelming force. No further ground engagements. Deploy the planet killers immediately, before they can adapt further." Emperor nodded. Commander Jae-hyun, a tall, severe-looking officer, stepped forward. "Yes, Your Majesty? Prepare a fleet. Take our most advanced weapons. Make an example of Earth that will be remembered for 1,000 generations." Commander Jae-hyun bowed deeply. "It will be done, Your Majesty." As the court dispersed, Sun Wu lingered. When only he and the Emperor remained, he spoke quietly. "Your Majesty, I must express my deepest concern. Planet killers are effective against defenseless worlds, but these humans have already demonstrated their ability to adapt our technology against us." The Emperor's eyes flashed with anger. "You question my decision?" "I offer a warning, Your Majesty. If we give the humans access to our planet killer technology, and they survive even partially, the consequences could be catastrophic for the Empire." Emperor Taiho waved dismissively. "Your concerns are noted, Grand Strategist, but Commander Jae-hyun will not fail as Admiral Jimin did. The matter is decided." Sun Wu bowed and withdrew, his face carefully neutral. But as he walked the gleaming corridors of the Imperial Palace, a sense of foreboding grew within him. Meanwhile, on Earth, recovery teams worked day and night, extracting every piece of Imperial technology from the battlefield. In laboratories around the world, scientists and engineers studied the alien devices, learning, adapting, improving. And deep beneath the surface, in hardened bunkers designed to survive orbital bombardment, Earth's leaders received the first warnings from their far-ranging scout ships, salvaged Imperial vessels crewed by hastily trained pilots. "A new fleet is coming," General Han told the assembled commanders. "Bigger than before, and our scouts report they're carrying something new, weapons designed to destroy entire planets." Instead of fear, the announcement was met with grim determination. "How long do we have?" asked Admiral Yuri. 3 weeks, maybe 4. Admiral Yuri nodded. "Then we better get to work." Commander Jae-hyun stood on the bridge of the Imperial flagship Eternal Wrath, watching as the massive fleet approached the Sol system. Behind him, the planet-killer weapons waited in their launch bays, 6 moon-sized devices capable of cracking Earth's crust and rendering the planet uninhabitable. "We will be in firing position in 30 minutes, his second-in-command reported. "No sign of human resistance." Jae-hyun nodded, satisfied but cautious. Unlike his predecessors, he had studied the reports carefully. These humans were dangerous, adaptable in ways that defied Imperial understanding. That's why he'd brought overwhelming force. 300 ships, their weapons charged, their crews battle-ready. "Maintain maximum alert," he ordered. "They may be hiding." Chief Engineer Min-Soo approached with a datapad. "Commander, our scans detect unusual energy readings from Earth's moon." "Their previous defensive position," Jae-hyun noted. "Predictable, target it first." Min-Soo shook his head. "The readings don't match weapon systems. They appear to be calculation nodes of some kind. Enormous computational power." Jae-hyun frowned. "For what purpose?" Before Min-Soo could answer, alarms blared across the bridge. Space itself seemed to tear open directly ahead of the Imperial fleet, a swirling vortex of light that violated every natural law. "Impossible," Min-Soo gasped. "They can't have jump technology." But the impossible was happening before their eyes. From the swirling portal emerged ships, dozens of them, then hundreds. Human ships cobbled together from salvaged Imperial technology and Earth materials, their designs bizarre and improvised, and they were everywhere at once. The jump portal hadn't just opened in front of them. Similar tiers in space-time appeared above, below, behind, and on both flanks of the Imperial fleet. In seconds, the hunters became the surrounded. "How?" Jae-hyun demanded, watching the tactical display in disbelief. "Jump technology requires precise mathematical calculations and power sources beyond their capabilities." Min-Soo stared at his readings, face pale. "The computational array on their moon, they're using brute computational force to solve jump equations. It's crude, inefficient, and should be impossible, but they're doing it anyway." On the lead human vessel, General Han gave the order that would be remembered for generations. "All ships engage. Take out those planet killers first." The human fleet attacked with shocking coordination. Their ships moved in patterns no Imperial commander would ever consider, dangerously close to one another, executing maneuvers that risked collision, flying directly into the path of Imperial weapons fire to create openings for their allies. "They fight like they don't fear death," whispered an Imperial officer, watching human pilots sacrifice themselves to damage critical Imperial systems. Commander Jae-hyun recovered quickly from his shock. "Launch the planet killers, now!" The massive bay doors on 6 specialized Imperial vessels slid open, revealing the gleaming doomsday weapons within. Each was the product of centuries of Imperial engineering, a self-guided projectile designed to burrow into a planet's core before detonating with force enough to shatter a world. But as the first planet killer cleared its launch bay, something unexpected happened. A small human vessel, barely larger than a shuttle, collided with it deliberately. Instead of a simple explosion, the human ship released a precisely calibrated energy pulse that triggered the planet killer's systems prematurely. The resulting explosion consumed not just the human ship and the planet killer, but the Imperial vessel that had carried it. They knew Minsu realized, horror dawning on his face. They studied the designs from our computer cores. They know exactly how to trigger the planet killers. 5 more suicide runs by human ships destroyed the remaining planet killers before they could be deployed. The Imperial fleet, caught in the chaos of multiple explosions, began to lose cohesion. Commander Jae-hyun, seeing his primary weapons destroyed, made a desperate decision. All ships, target Earth directly. Conventional bombardment at maximum. Power! The remaining Imperial vessels turned their weapons toward the distant blue planet. For a moment, it seemed the humans had overplayed their hand. Their fleet couldn't possibly stop hundreds of ships firing simultaneously. But as the first energy beams lanced toward Earth, they struck an invisible barrier. The beams scattered harmlessly into space. Their energy dissipated across what appeared to be a planetary shield. "Scan that shield," Jae-hyun ordered, disbelieving. Science Officer Yuna worked frantically at her console. "Commander, it's based on our own shield technology, but they've modified it to cover an entire planet. The power requirements would be—" She looked up, shocked. "They're drawing power from their sun, using some kind of energy collection array." "That's theoretical science," Minsu protested. "We've run simulations, but the engineering challenges—" "They didn't care about the challenges," Yuna interrupted. "They just did it." Throughout the bridge, displays showed Imperial ships being disabled one by one. The human vessels fought with desperate ferocity, using tactics no Imperial academy would ever teach, ramming smaller ships into critical systems, flying through their own weapons fire to hit targets, chaining explosions in ways that violated standard combat mathematics. "Commander," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the Imperial Palace. It's the Emperor himself." The holographic image of Emperor Taiho appeared on the bridge, his expression grim. "Commander Jae-hyun, you will withdraw immediately." Jae-hyun blinked in surprise. "Your Majesty, we still have superior numbers. We can—" "You will withdraw," the Emperor repeated, his voice like ice. "Grand Strategist Sun Woo has convinced me that every moment we engage these humans, we provide them with more of our technology to adapt and improve. This is no longer about conquering Earth, it is about preserving the Empire." Behind the Emperor, Sun Woo stood with a datapad displaying projections that made even Jae-hyun's blood run cold, charts showing the exponential growth of human technological capability with each Imperial engagement. "Yes, Your Majesty," Jae-hyun replied, swallowing his pride. As the order to retreat spread through the fleet, the human ships did something unexpected. They began to withdraw, opening corridors for the Imperial vessels to escape. "They're letting gas go," Minsu observed, puzzled. "No," Jae-hyun corrected bitterly. "They're studying us, learning our retreat patterns. They're already preparing for our next encounter." The remnants of the mighty Imperial fleet limped away from Earth, jumping to safety as soon as they cleared the gravity well of the solar system. On Earth, celebration erupted across the planet. Humanity had not merely survived, they had driven back the greatest power in the galaxy twice. Cities damaged in the first invasion were already being rebuilt. Imperial technology captured in both battles was being studied, adapted, improved. In a quiet moment after the victory celebrations, General Han stood with Admiral Yuri atop the rebuilt United Nations building in New York, looking up at the stars. "They'll be back eventually," Yuri said. Han nodded. "Yes, but next time we won't be defending Earth." She smiled slightly. "Next time we'll be taking the fight to them." In his private chambers in the Imperial Palace, Emperor Taiho signed the official decree with a heavy heart. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Galactic Empire had designated an entire system as forbidden territory. No Imperial ship would approach Earth again, but as Grand Strategist Sun Woo had warned him, it was already too late. The humans now possessed Imperial technology, and more importantly, they understood how quickly they could advance by studying it. "How long?" the Emperor asked Sun Woo. "At their current rate of advancement, 5 years before they develop reliable, long-range jump capability. 10 years before they can reach our core systems." The Emperor's expression darkened. "And then?" Sun Woo's answer was simple and terrifying. "Then, Your Majesty, we pray they are more merciful than we would have been."